page 53 of the Haggadah we read, "Even if we were all men of wisdom, people of understanding and knowledgeable in the Torah, we would still be obligated to tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt." What's going on here? This is discussing the classic barrier that we have between the mind and the heart. Even if we were men of wisdom, you know the whole Torah, you know the whole story, you still have to tell over the story of the Exodus, because there's often a cognitive dissonance between what we know and what we believe, or what we know and what we feel. I mean, take doctors, for example. I mean, my doctor's always telling me to lose weight, but he's fatter than me. So obviously he's not listening to his own words. And that's a classic example of, a doctor knows medicine. Many doctors smoke and do unhealthy things, even though they know it's wrong, because what you know doesn't necessarily percolate through into what you do, what you feel, and what you believe. And that is the challenge of tonight, of the Seder, of the Passover experience, of the Exodus. What does Exodus mean? To leave Egypt, Mitzrayim, to leave limitation, Metzarim. What limitations exactly are you leaving? And the answer is that there's a certain space within us, a certain point in the heart, where we have connectedness between what we understand and what we do. And the point of the Seder is to get there, to penetrate that space, and to anchor ourselves in it, so that during the rest of the year, when we read spiritual truth, when we read religious truth, it resonates with us, and we're able to put it into action. And that is also symbolized by the neck. The neck is called Meitzar, a narrowness. The reason why your physical body is narrow over here between the head and the heart is because there is a blockage there. There's definitely a blockage there. And the only way to get around that is to penetrate that space in the heart, that space of faith, that space of surrender, that space of commitment, which we all have. But, we're too busy to get there. It's too inconvenient to get there. We don't have the time to get there. So this year at the Seder, try and leave Egypt. Try and get there. Even if we were all men of wisdom, we would still have to tell the story. We have to make it meaningful and to resonate with us. Okay, another insight. We have this fascinating story. It once happened that Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Kiva, and Rabbi Tarfon were reclining at a Seder in Bnei Brak. They were discussing the Exodus from Egypt that entire night, until their students came and said to them, "Teachers, the time has come for reciting the morning Shema." Now, I always love this story because one conjures up an image of these great sages sitting together. Rabbi Shalom Dovber of Lubavitch, when he reached this part of the Haggadah, he used to say, a beautiful gathering, because in his mind he summoned these souls, and he visualized them in front of his mind, and he summoned them into the room with him. It's a beautiful story. But what's disturbing and what's odd is the students are so chutzpahdik. They're like, rabbis, teachers, time to do some basic Judaism. You've been babbling on all night. Time to do a mitzvah. I mean, what audacity! What chutzpah! That the students should be telling their rabbis how to observe the religion that they're being taught. So the Rebbe explains beautifully that really these rabbis were on a exalted level of worship called what the Talmud refers to as Teirase Ubnose, which means Torah was their profession. If a person is totally dedicated to Torah study, they're really exempt from keeping all the other commandments, because Torah study is the highest of all the commandments. So really, technically speaking, according to the letter of the law, these rabbis didn't have to do the time-bound commandment of reciting the Shema in the morning. So why do the students remind them that they had to when they didn't have to? So that points to the uniqueness of this evening. What is the difference between the Seder night and all the other nights of the year in terms of our connection? So the answer is that there's a biblical precept on Pesach, V'higarat levincha. Tell it over to your child. Tell it to your son. There's an obligation to communicate. It's a night of connection. I remember as a child going to the Seder at my grandfather's house, and he would say some passages in English, and it was a tremendous moment of connection. I felt connected to the Jewish people, and I felt that the Masorah, that the tradition is kind of continuing from generation to generation. That's what the Seder is all about. And I cried. I cried because I couldn't read Hebrew properly, and I thought I won't be able to do this for my own kids. Little did I know I'd be writing Haggadah. But I cried. I thought, if I can't do this, then it's all going to stop here. The Jews came out of Egypt, and for thousands of years we've been having a Seder, and it's just going to end. The Seder is all about connection. It's about engaging the children. And when you engage your students, you have to somehow be on their level. You have to stoop down. You have to speak in a way that they relate to. So therefore this night was an exception to all the other nights of the year. That on this night, the teachers, because they had the obligation to go down to the level of the students, they became obligated in the Shema. On their own exalted level, in their own aloofness, they were beyond the mitzvah. They didn't have to do it. But since on this night, you cannot remain aloof, and it's a night of emotional and intellectual engagement, therefore you have to project down. And when you project down, you become enmeshed in the world, you become involved in the world, and you become obligated in the mitzvahs like everyone else. And that is why the student said, Rabbis, I know that you're on the level where you don't have to recite the Shema, but tonight, because of us, it came from the students, because of your engagement with us, therefore you have to. Fascinating insight from the Kalman.